Bishop of the Diocese of Pennsylvania asked me to come to the Advocate in 2011. So even though we have great social service programs, our soup kitchen feeds 75 to 125 people a day, and that's wonderful. We have about 38 kids involved in our after-school program, and they also receive a meal, and that's all wonderful. But this is primarily, it's first a church. And so in order for those social services to be more than just what any other nonprofit can do, the church needs to be the heart and the backbone of that. Most of the folks who we want to invite in, folks who come in for a soup kitchen, people who come in to just for social services, they have no idea what the Episcopal Church is, what we stand for, who we are. Part of this is then it's a matter of education. How can we tell our story in such a way so that people can hear it? But when Paul Washington, who was the first black priest at the Church of the Advocate, when he came in 1962, he became very involved in black nationalist things, black power type activities. In 1968, there were 3 landmark events. There were 2 Black Power conferences, and this was under Father Paul Washington's ministry. And there was a Black Panther conference, all happened in 1968. In 1974, the Episcopal Church ordained the first 11 women to the Episcopal priesthood. The Advocate became largely an African American congregation, sometime during Paul Washington's ministry. And folks would come in and they would comment to Paul that there were no black images in the church. And because this church was built for a white congregation, as most mainline churches were. And so that's when he commissioned the 14 murals. And there are 2 artists, Richard Watson and Walter Edmonds, did the murals. Paul Washington gave them the biblical text for each of the murals. He told them generally that the murals were to express the African American experience, the black experience in America. And the murals were painted in place between 1973 and 1976. Richard Watson says that they didn't come with any preconceived ideas what was going to be on the canvas. They had the text, they knew the theme, and they allowed the space to simply speak to them. The Advocate has always been about social justice. I mean, that's probably the hallmark of who we are and what we have stood for. I really believe that in our society today, that there needs to be a concerted effort for people to stand together for social justice and for that kind of advocacy. The Advocate offers a lot in terms of its social service organizations. We have what's called the Advocate Cafe, which is really a soup kitchen, and that's what it was initially when it was founded. We have 10 meals a week in our Advocate Cafe, 5 during the day, which mostly is an adult population, and we serve anywhere from 75 to 125 people for that. And then we have 4 meals in the evenings to our after-school program. We have a new nonprofit called the Advocate Center for Culture and Education, and that has the after-school program. And we serve about 38 to 40 meals to children before they go home after the end of the after-school program, which includes academics, cultural arts, as well as sports. I don't know if this is a social service, but I think it is in some extent, because our building is a landmark, a national historic landmark. We just started offering tours of our space. The Church of the Advocate is situated on a half a city block in North Philadelphia. It was designed by known architect Charles Burns, who has done some other extraordinary church buildings and other buildings in Philadelphia and across the country. The building is said to be the finest example of a French Gothic revival-style cathedral in this country. And you really do have to experience it to really appreciate it, especially if you go into the courtyard. It's just an extraordinary place. There are some huge challenges, and one, of course, is food insecurity. I don't know how we can single-handedly attack any of those issues, right, that we face. And I think that the approach that we have taken is that we understand that the only way to make effective change is through partnerships. The Temple is certainly a partner. Temple students. Health partners come out probably about once a month, and they speak to people who gather for food. They speak to our patrons about different health issues or health concerns. Mighty Writers, which is an intensive writing program that has three other locations in Philadelphia. They come out and they work with our after-school program, so that our children have an intensive writing program. Art Sanctuary has been a longtime partner of the Church of the Advocate. There's quite a few. I think the history of the Advocate is just so powerful that it just continues to attract people. So Prometheus Chamber Orchestra came to me, I think about 2 years ago. They wanted to find a way to combine classical music and social justice. And I knew immediately this was the place for them because the Advocate is all about social justice. What it's all about for me is bringing different groups of people into conversation. I think that the service that is most vital is probably the one that is least known, which is the worship community, right? Because if I say that it's the worshiping community that needs to undergird everything else that happened, and that's the heart of the Advocate. But then, I think it's about living that. It's not just about inviting people to come in for worship. It's about how do you live your faith. Do you live your faith in such a way that people have the opportunity to have a changed life, or a better life, or a different life? Do you offer people a safe place, a safe haven? Do children know that they're loved? Is education happening? I think that all emanates from the worshiping community. That's part of living the gospel of Jesus Christ.